Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share a quick unboxing and first look at the Gigabyte Aero 15 XC. Now, I'm noting XC because I already unboxed the KC, which these are all brand new refreshed models for 2021. This particular build retails for $2,200 US. It has the same Intel Core i7 that is an 8-core, the 10870H processor, complemented by 32 gigs of RAM, unlike the KC, which has 16, and it's got a 1 terabyte NVMe, unlike the KC, which has a half terabyte. And the KC is a lot less expensive, but the key difference here, besides, of course, the RAM and the NVMe drive, is that we have the NVIDIA RTX 3070. The KC model has the 3060. Doesn't look like I got all of the tape. So that's the important thing to note. Now, in terms of a value perspective, there's no question. I think that, the KC model is the way to go because at $1,600, a 4K 15.5-inch OLED display, you've got Thunderbolt 3. That, by the way, is the problem I have with my model. The Thunderbolt 3 port on the other unit died. Now, I don't know if I think it's software related. That's what at least one of you reported, and I hope that you're correct. But in any event, they did not have the KC model in stock. Unsurprisingly, it sold out because, again, at $1,600 US, it is a pretty dynamic machine. So I decided, let's see how this performs. Maybe it will outperform the Asus Zephyrus G15 that I've been covering, which everyone loves. At least it's incredibly popular, and that's because at $1,800 US, that's a really tough machine to beat in terms of, just specs with the Ryzen 9 5900 HS and, of course, the 3070 on board. 16 gigs of RAM, but 8 gigs of that RAM is soldered, which is kind of disgusting. So let me go ahead and get the packaging out of the way. Gigabyte, not as big a builder as Asus, obviously, for those of you unfamiliar with them. But the Aero line's been around for some years. I've always found it intriguing. What's always held me back is that there's always been thermal throttling. This generation, though, doesn't suffer from that. So the power brick on this is a 230-watt standard brick from China. This is not a new brick of any sort. You'll find this essentially all over the place with different manufacturers that all kind of come from the Intel reference builds. Let me get this out of the way. And the beauty of this machine is that no corners are really cut. I mean, you've got, as I mentioned, a 4K Samsung OLED panel. I wish it were touchscreen, but we can't have it all. And then in addition to that, as I get the power brick and all that stuff out of the way, a little bit of a design here, which I think is very minimal. And at least in my opinion, minimal is, I'm a less is more kind of guy. What can I tell you? I want something that's powerful, but isn't trying to get attention. I'm not attention seeking, believe it or not, even though I'm on YouTube. But what's nice about this, besides the 4K OLED, is that the I/O is what you'd expect from a really powerful and well-rounded system. So just like the $1,600 model, we have HDMI 2.1, which I'm pretty sure, of course, is going to be relegated to the UHD graphics, not the NVIDIA GPU. For that, you're going to want to use the DisplayPort. The Mini DisplayPort 1.4 with output, I actually have on the way a cable for this. It should be here tomorrow. Should deliver 4K at 120 hertz to a traditional, DisplayPort. I did not see a DisplayPort 1.4 Mini to HDMI 2.1. Still on the hunt for one of those. We have a Type A USB port, headphone microphone combo, of course, Ethernet port. Nothing on the back except for some Aero branding. We've got a lot of ventilation on the back of this machine. The RAM is user upgradable. Nothing is soldered. That's another reason I like this machine, at least on paper, more than the Asus, where 8 gigs is soldered. And then on the other side, we have the power port, full-size SD card slot, which is UHS 2 capable or competent in terms of speed. So we're talking about 300 megs a second. That's a nice touch, even though higher, or I should say faster storage is on the move, on the rise. Still, you don't find this sort of capability on many laptops these days. The Thunderbolt 3 port, which some of you don't care about. I do. I really do. I've got a lot of NVMe storage that is Thunderbolt 3 compliant, which means over a gigabyte a second throughput. And yeah, you can get close with traditional Type-C USB 3.2, but this is more dynamic. So I'd always rather have Thunderbolt than not. That is something that is missing from the Asus G15. I wish it was there. And then 2 more USB ports. I'm not in love with the orientation of this. It gets tight, and when you have everything connected. And also the power brick, as my handprint is left there, the power brick leaves a little bit to be desired. And I say that because I'm going to show you right now that on the brick itself, and I'll open this up so you can see that full keyboard. This is, again, a Pantone X-Rite certified, or I should say validated, calibrated OLED panel. Let's see if it powers on. It likely will not. We have a little webcam. That's another thing missing from the Asus. But what I really, my biggest qualm with this machine, which I'm about to show you, is with the power brick itself, because you can see this is the part you're going to connect, and it's got this guy right here. And that, unfortunately, ends up, well, blocking or getting in the way of the, UHS 2 full-size SD card slot and or the Thunderbolt 3 port. So it's just not great in terms of orientation. I kind of wish this was at the back of the machine, but that's a nitpick. What can I tell you? It's very far from being the end of the world. When it comes to overall performance, another thing I want to note for those of you that are wondering, and I probably should have said this at the top of the video, based on everything I've researched, this machine actually outperforms the G15 3080 model with AMD's hotness with their Ryzen 9 5900 HS. So, sip on that for a little bit. So if you're after the best performance on the market, yeah, AMD's new chip may be best in class, but when it comes to optimization, it seems like Intel is still where it's at. And for that reason, I'll be waiting, at least for owning a machine driven by an AMD CPU, until those sort of things get ironed out. And it's still an awkward thing. I've said this before, I'll say it again, the whole AMD and NVIDIA marriage, once competitors, I mean, they're still pretending to compete, aren't they? But not really. No real competition when it comes to GPUs. I mean, there are fanboys and girls out there, but there's a reason AMD is NVIDIA is $550 a share. Let me go ahead and plug this in, get a port here that's free, and let's power it on. Another nice thing about this machine is that it does have per key RGB lighting. So you are not relegated to, just having RGB backlighting. So that's another nice thing it has over the Asus that the Asus just does not accommodate. So we should be sipping some juice now. And it probably is fully charged, but often you've got to plug in to power up. So let's see now if we get a boot. Hopefully I don't have something DOA. That would be sad, wouldn't it? Actually, don't need to answer that. I'll answer that myself. Let's try that again. And there we go. And there's that keyboard that I think is fantastic. Takes a little time getting used to it. Doesn't have the most travel, but you do have a numerical keypad, which I kind of, I'm not going to say love, but I'd prefer to have it than not. And once you get used to this, I think most users are going to be really happy with it. Incredibly thin bezel on the display, but the beauty here is that I expect to be able to actually game, even though this is only a 60 hertz panel. Most of the gaming I would do with this would be coming out of the display port to a gaming monitor. So the beauty here is that when I do want to play games in 4K, I don't expect to be able to play them at ultra, but I should be able to get away with medium settings on a lot of titles. And I'll be testing that out. And I will be, for those of you that are curious, directly comparing this machine to the G15, since it is a closer spec, being that it does have the RTX 3070. The previous comparison I did was with the 3060 because I never saw myself, making the jump to this machine, because really I didn't think I needed the 3070, and I knew I could upgrade the RAM myself and maintain dual channel, unlike the G15. And I'm going to be swapping out the NVMe that's in here anyway. Same applies to if I end up sticking with the G15, which, by the way, the G15 isn't out of the mix, but if this outperforms it, they're close enough in price, $1,800 versus $2,200, and this checks more boxes for me, so it's going to make my decision even more difficult. So I'm not going to make you sit through getting ready and setting up Windows. I actually have to clone this drive as soon as I end this video and clone it to another NVMe, because the factory image, in my pursuit of trying to rectify the problems with the Thunderbolt port on the KC model, that is, again, the 3060 model of this laptop, the image, I didn't create a backup, so I don't have an image now. Genius, I know. At any rate, have to take care of that because I do want to get that shipped out, since I was not able to bring the Thunderbolt port back to life. And if it is software-based, one of you pointed out that it has something to do with Gigabyte's control center, and I wouldn't be shocked. That's one thing where I like the build quality on this machine. The trackpad's great, even though it's kind of small. Fingerprint scanner, I don't really care about. I know a lot of you do. But for me, the software that Gigabyte employs to manage the system, from drivers to just controlling the fan profiles, color accuracy of the display in terms of gradient, the temperature rather, that you want to go with, really not that great. That is one area where Asus does do a better job, in my opinion, than Gigabyte. But when it comes to putting together everything, just about everything I could possibly want in a machine, the Gigabyte Aero represents that, and that's why I gave it yet another chance. And hopefully this is going to be the winner. Also, you may have noticed RTX Studio, because Gigabyte's preference, their pitch with the Aero line is that if you want a gaming machine, go to the Aorus. If you want something that can game and can also be designed for content creators, that's where the Aero 15 comes into play. That's pretty much it. I'm going to get this thing started up, connect to Wi-Fi, all that good stuff, and clone the drive. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. Hit that like button, and as usual, please feel free to subscribe, and please stay safe. Later.